Hey everybody, hope you guys doing all right. So there's been something on my heart to speak with you guys about that I haven't done so yet, so I'm gonna do so now. So it's in my opinion that so this opponent, this evil force that I've talked about, whatever you want to call it, opposition, resistance to love, whatever it may be to you, I'm trying to work on calling it more my opponent because it takes away. Sometimes I can get a little too hateful and passionate in a negative way, which can have negative implications on my life if I start calling it too much evil and then just focusing on it like that, because everything has its place. So, opponent, it's something to help me grow and to learn from, as we are for it, in my opinion. So, anyway, but it's in my opinion that this opponent of ours has its main thing. I mean, when I say its main thing, but one of its tactics is using um, is getting humanity to kill itself. Is getting humanity to fight wars with each other. Is getting humanity to lose its touch with God or with love, and to essentially adopt or transform into something that's more motivated by greed, corruption, hate, power, tyranny, domination, and all these types of things. And it's not just something that's specific to one nation or people or anything like that. It's something that's happened all over the globe, all over humanity, and there's many different nations and examples throughout many different nations and peoples and situations and movements where we can see this opponent using very similar, if not the exact same tactics in different situations to get humanity to do these type of things, to get humanity to kill itself in whatever type of fashion they can. And when I say kill itself, I don't mean just literally by fighting wars, also just by drug addiction, by just continuing to perpetuate sin. All of these things, in a sense, are killing love, which, since we are made in the image of God, which is love, it is essentially killing us, in my opinion, again. So, and I'm sorry too if I sound a little like, I don't know, my energy's really high, and I'm not used to having so much energy, so I'm kind of feeling a little goofy, but I still wanted to make some videos here and share some stuff with you guys. But I want to apologize if I come across a little silly or something. So anyway, let me get into the content of this video. So here we got this was brought to my attention from the movie The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, and I looked into it, and parts of the movie are true and parts of it are not true. It seems the character that Tom Cruise played, that was fabricated. To what level, I'm not sure, but what does seem to be factual was the aspect in the movie, this is kind of a spoiler, where they talk about how the West came into Japan and it started selling them guns, and not just guns, but also just the way the West did shit, like Western culture. That's what we offered the Japanese, from the way that we dress to the way that they do business. And, the Japanese, they bought it and they adopted the Western ways, and in doing so, they decided to discontinue, abolish, and make being a samurai illegal. So these are the actual steps that they took to implement this. And if you're looking at what's going on in the world today, especially here in America, there's very similar things that are going on. So again, if we look to our past, we can see what happened in the past, and we can learn from our past and not make the same mistakes that our ancestors or people in the past already made. And we can learn from them, like Albert Einstein wanted us to do, or suggested that we do, so that we don't end up repeating the same shit over and over again, which would be living out the definition of insanity. So anyway, without further ado, let me just go ahead and read you guys this. The sword, so the Haito Edict. I might have mispronounced that, and I'm sorry if I did. But it is essentially the Sword Abolishment Edict. Was an edict issued by the Meiji government of Japan on March 28, 1976, which prohibited people from, with the exception of former lords and law enforcement officers, from carrying weapons in public. Seen as an embodiment of a sword hunt, which is kind of like a witch hunt. And if you look into the witch hunt, I mean, the witch hunt, they hunted down characters and people. I say characters, it's a real person by the name of Joan of Arc. And if you look into Joan of Arc's story, she was literally a girl from a rural farm town in France who essentially helped push the English back from France, really single-handedly. I mean, she had a connection with God, or so she told people she had a connection. I believe she did, and many others did too. Some people were very skeptical, but she was able to gain essentially control of a whole French army given to her by the French Dauphin, which is like the French president, because they believed that she was communicating with God. So much so that they allowed her to have control over an army, and with that army, she was victorious on a number of occasions, I believe. But so much so, it was able to push the French back. And in fact, the French were so comfortable with the position that they'd acquired, largely through Joan of Arc, that they decided to kind of settle a truce with the English, and they accepted gold bribery, and they also ended up betraying Joan of Arc. Very sad. And the English ended up capturing her, and they burned her to the stake, calling her a witch, when all she did was try to push the English back from being invaded by France. So anyways, when you see these type of hunts, a lot of the times, look into them a little bit. I encourage you guys to look into what they're actually hunting, because a lot of the times they'll use these words and they'll make it sound like they're actually doing good things, hunting down monsters, when a lot of times the things that they're hunting down are actually the things that are trying to stand up for you. So just be careful, because the the devil loves to twist things up and deceive people. So anyway, I just wanted to share with you that real quick and then continue on here. All right, so violators would have their swords confiscated. History. The Haito, sorry if I mispronounced that, was one of a series of steps taken by the government to abolish the traditional privileges of the samurai class. The first Haito of 1870 prohibited farmers or merchants from wearing swords and dressing like samurai. Excuse me. This measure was in part an effort to restore public safety and order during the tumultuous period immediately after the Meiji's restoration and during the Boshin War. In 1871, the government issued the Danpatsuri Edict, allowing samurai to cut their top knots and wear their hair in a Western manner. However, this was not required, simply allowed and encouraged. The movie The Last Samurai showed that a little bit differently. Just saying. Universal military conscription was instituted in 1873, and with the creation of the Imperial Japanese Army, the samurai lost their monopoly in military access, in military service. The hereditary stipends provided to the samurai by their formal feudal lords and assumed by the central government in 1871 were likewise abolished in 1873. The prohibition on wearing swords was controversial with the Meiji oligarchy, but the argument that it was an anarchism, not in keeping with the westernization of Japan, won out. So basically, because they thought it wasn't helping the westernization of Japan and that it was perhaps perpetuating anarchism, those were some of the reasons why they wanted to discontinue the samurai. So, without getting too specific on things, my phone's about to die, so I don't want to make this too long, but, there's similarities that are happening here today in America and elsewhere around the world, and that have already happened in other countries around the world. So, I also want to show you guys this real quick before I shut this video down. I asked, what did I ask up here? Okay, it's not going to show you. And you know what? I just want to say this too. This popped up on my right here. I've watched porno one time on this computer the whole time I've had this computer, and that was like 3 months ago. And then a few weeks ago, for whatever reason, that showed up. I have no idea why. I just want to say that. Anyway, so I looked into what happened after the samurai fell, what changed in Japan. Did it get better? And this is what came up. So the Meiji restoration was the restoration that ended the samurai rule in Japan. And so after that, this is kind of what happened. The Meiji restoration turned a feudalistic Japan into an educated, technological, and expansionistic nation that was intent on conquering Asia. So it's conquering Asia, to conquer a whole continent, that's not a good thing to do. There's a lot of killing that goes in. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of people that are going to lose their lives, get displaced, a lot of bullshit, a lot of drama, a lot of bad stuff is going to happen when you try to conquer an entire continent. So right then and there, you have a whole different change. When before, Japan was just this little nation that just stayed, this own little island nation that just stayed on its own, did its own thing, had its own economy, and pretty much just kept everybody else away, but they also didn't fuck with people. And now all of a sudden they're interested in all this Western expansion and taking over the world and all this and that, and it goes on here. So what effect did the Meiji restoration have on Japan's economy? So the Meiji Restoration turned the mostly agricultural Japanese feudalistic economy to a laissez-faire capitalism, getting back into that again, and industrial society, which copied and ultimately matched many countries in the West. And remember how I say this beast system is a copy and paste. They're not creators. They copy and paste things, as the 13th son said. So it's just more proof that that's what they're doing. What were the effects of the Meiji Restoration? The Meiji, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, reforms led to an educated and industrial Japan, which expanded into several imperialistic wars in which several foreign countries were defeated. And you know what? You know, they say educated. It's like, they were educated before that. It's just a different type of education. And then they're trying to glamorize it by saying that they defeated, you know, other nations and stuff, you know, but they were also defeated themselves, you know, I'm just saying. But anyway, let's keep it moving. What were the main reforms under the Meiji? The Japanese disposed of their feudal system for a representational government, copied, again, that word copied, many Western ideas, and unified into an educated yet imperialistic country. Again, they're trying to make it seem like, oh, now they're coming from this non-educated, you know, tribal land of, you know, savages to this educated land of imperialistic capitalists that are so good and, you know, right and moving forward and progressive, and it's good for everybody in the economy, and it's actually the exact opposite of that. So anyway, my phone's going to die soon here, so I'm going to go ahead and shut this video down, but I wanted to share this with you guys, and I'm going to be going into this topic even more because I think they're going to use the U.S. military for a very similar reason. And it's just my opinion. I hope they don't, because that's going to be a whole nother issue to deal with. And it's very sad they use these young men and women to go against their own countrymen and families and people. But I mean, that's how the devil works, man. If you look at the movie The Sum of All Fears, which started out as a book, he talks about, you know, you don't fight Germany and Russia or the United States and Russia. You get the United States and Russia to fight each other. And that's exactly what the beast or any type of manipulator will do. Instead of trying to fight all these different fights, you get your enemies to fight each other. And then you just sit back, watch them beat the shit out of each other. And then when they're weak, you take complete control. So, all right. Anyways, I love you guys. Hope you have a good day. All right. Bye.